Ruben Mascarenas. I'm a techie by training and activist by choice. I have always believed uh, in eliminating what I call avoidable suffering and unutilized potential. So, whatever my life story and whatever my interventions in the social or the political space or even civic activism for that matter is directed towards reducing avoidable suffering and unutilized potential. I I started as I'm a Juhu boy, I'm a Mumbai boy, born, bred, jammed in the city of Bombay. I went to school at St. Joseph's here in Juhu. Thereafter, I went to St. Xavier's College. Thereafter, I went to St. Francis, where I studied engineering. And then I worked with the corporate MNCs in IT for nearly 8 years. My expertise there was uh, HRMS implementation. So we were working on the PeopleSoft platform, post-implementation customization and enhancement. And I guess my career has basically had two parallel trajectories. One has basically been the one I just told you. But the other one, and I guess the more interesting one, the reason why I've been called here is because of my activism. I think being born in a Catholic family, charity came very naturally to me. Uh, we would be active in the church. My mother is a very pious woman, and because you're active in your parish group, you start doing these interesting things. For example, we used to clean the beach even before it it became a very famous thing right now. And we would do these charitable visits to the hospital, etc., etc. And I would always ask myself as to, is all of this sustainable? And nothing really changes. We confuse action with activity. We're just happy that we're doing something, irrespective of whether or not what we do is actually having a result. So I was always inclined towards politics since a very young age. My mother's earliest memory of me watching television is me watching Lok Sabha TV. So it used to not be Lok Sabha TV then, but it used to be live Lok Sabha as a kid. And I always had a fascination for politics. What particularly intrigued me is I would see, some uh, very educated people lose the election, and I would see some not very lettered people win the election, and um, that really caused me to think. So while all of this was on, the RTI Act came in place in 2005. I was very fortunate to see its drafting close on. The then Anna Hazare. This is even before Anna Hazare became the Anna Hazare we know. He was sitting on a fast at Hazan Maidan, and I was in Davis College, and I was working with Mayank Gandhi at that point in time, and we saw the drafting of the RTI very closely. And I was amongst the first people in Mumbai to use the RTI Act. I remember filing an RTI to find out something about my garbage dump. So if you know Irla, you guys know Irla. I assume all of you all are from Bombay.
Most
I
of
know
us.
Idla. Yeah.
So if you get onto Irla from the SV road next to the petrol pump, there was, I mean, when we were kids, we don't remember seeing a garbage dump, and then the garbage dump suddenly came there. And I filed an RTI to find out what's happening, and I filed the RTI reply basically said that the Kachra Dabba was never supposed to be there. It was outside the MLA's house on the SV road, and it was shifted there because after he became an MLA, he didn't want the Gandagi around, so he shifted it to the Irla market, and it was a cause of a lot of disease and just filth on the main road. And I did basically launch a signature campaign. I wrote letters to the BMC. This was again as an activist, and at the end of the whole thing, I managed to shift the garbage dump from the road here in Irla back to where it was, and then we eliminated it over a period of time. And this was my first win as an activist, as somebody who wanted the system to work, as somebody who always wanted to put to use the art of formal letter writing learned in school and college all along. So while that happened, there was a lot of churn going on. There was a Vote Mumbai campaign in Bombay that was done by the Lok Satta movement, and that was about a directly elected and empowered mayor. That was about the 74th constitutional amendment, speaking about urban panchayat, citizen empowerment, and really talking about taking control of the city. And while that was happening, in 2006, you had Adolf D'Souza run for elections here in Juhu. And that was the first time that I actually met all of these people. And, they told me, I still remember meeting a Mayank Gandhi and a Praful Vora, who then told me that, hey, we're going to contest this elections and we're going to win this election with just 75,000 rupees. And I laughed at them because I used to also hang out with these Shaka Pramukhs here. And the deal was that I don't join the party, but I basically get to listen to whatever they discuss. And, I would, in return of that, basically do the English letter writing for them. And I knew that it was impossible. And here I saw, a group of some extremely interesting people. There were a lot of professionals, a lot of activists from the Jew Citizens Welfare Group, from Agni, from Lok Satta, and from quite a few of these places. So I still remember in my first year engineering, I was really, really excited that something like this is happening. And then when I moved around, three things happened, and three stories, because this will help you understand where I come from. Number one, am I audible?
Yeah, just keep the camera fixed because the thing is shaking a lot.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
So number one,
keep it on a place, a table or something where so it'll be easier for you.
Okay.
Yes.
Is this better?
Yeah, this is better. I can see your full family now behind you.
So that's mom and dad. That's a very young mom and that's a very young dad. Both are products of a love. I mean, I'm a product of that love marriage, and that's my family there. That's my younger brother, dad, mom, and me. Though I am a much more lanky me. Okay, so coming back to the discussion. So during the course of the campaign, I remember going to a slum, and the slum looked like a war-ravaged zone. I could only see the extremely old or the extremely young, and I couldn't see any able-bodied young people. And when I asked them ki kahan gaye, the reply was haka mara gele. And I know these people because I play football, and I played football for Juj Khana, and I knew all these guys. And I went there, and they basically told me that, look, the business of elections, you know how the business of elections work, and we'll actually, you're a friend, we would actually charge you, but yeah, you may want to, you may basically go ahead and do whatever you wanted to do. And these were the same people when the 26th July floods had struck back in 2005. We had really helped these people, so they had some gratitude for us. And I remember going there and I gave a speech and I said, "Arey, ye nahi hota, wo nahi hota, log badal jate, hamari zindagi nahi badal jati." And I asked people to help us and vote for us. And then they said that, look, aisa nahi hota. You see that shining pipe? That shining pipe is being given by party A. There's another pipe plus the toilet which is being promised to us. That is party B plus money. And what are you offering? And I obviously didn't have anything to offer. And I was disappointed because these were people that I grew up with, I played football with. And I went there and we campaigned, and it was a chaotic campaign. But at the end of it, we won that election and we defeated stalwarts and so on and so forth. Now, when we won that election, that was story one. Story two is, as soon as we won that election, the same people who voted for me from the slum, because, the way you have the results these days, you could actually see who voted in which way. I remember coming home very satisfied, me, and going to sleep, and my father waking me up at 2 in the night. And it turned out that the guys had cut their water pipe just because they voted for me. I mean, it was not part of a deal or whatever the case. And suddenly I realized that, well, there is these people look up to me. We sorted that. And then I worked very closely with Mr. Adol D'Souza, who went on to become the Prabhak Samiti chairman, the ward committee chairperson for K West, was also on the standing committee in various other municipal committees. And I was literally his chief of staff. And my defining point about, we all have our theories of change and we believe that we need to do a number of things to affect change. And that's true for me. I don't think one particular thing will affect change. A lot of people would basically look at me and call me confused, and all around the place, I consider myself enriched. But the defining point about why should it be politics happened during the Crawford Market campaign. Do you remember the Crawford Market redevelopment proposal?
Yes.
There was a Crawford Market. Are you still there with me?
Yeah, we are there.
So, the Crawford Market, the famous Crawford Market next to the Commissioner's office near Bhindi Bazaar, was being redeveloped, and Shailesh Gandhi at that point in time had said that the redevelopment rights are being sold for a fraction of the amount that it's supposed to be. So, Kuleam Chori Ori, go and stop it. And this was exciting. I actually went to all these corporators. I remember bunking class sometimes. I mean, in engineering, we all take the liberty to. And after doing all of that, I remember on the day that the bill actually came up, I thought it's a very fairly simple thing. All the so-called stalwarts had sort of agreed to it. And the only person who stood up to oppose this in the BMC house was an Adol D'Souza. Not the most eloquent or the charismatic of people you'll meet, but he had the strength of conviction. He could stand up there and he could basically oppose that. That day I was convinced that all this typical activisty approach of going out there and pleading with your elected representative is okay to an extent. But if you really want to effect change and you really want to effect change at scale, it has to be politics. And if one person, and if in all of these 227 corporators, between 2007 and 2012, only one corporator could actually stand up because all other parties had issued whip. This was for me the beginning of what I call clean politics and new political culture. And of course, subsequent to that, there was a Jagore campaign. I've worked very closely to increase voter participation. Recently, we worked with the BMC and the State Election Commission to again increase Mumbai's voting percentage. For the first time in 70 years, we managed to increase Mumbai's voting percentage by 13%. Nobody thought it would ever. Nobody thought it was ever possible. Nobody thought people would respond. But I think using best technology, best creativity, and of course to run a two-way sort of a campaign, we actually had. So all campaigns before this were one way. We changed that to a two-way campaign wherein we asked people to take a pledge, and we got over nearly 16 lakh people who basically gave a missed call, a pledge. And then subsequent to that, we got Facebook, which issued a notification on voting day, and prior to that to all Mumbaikars, that is all people who had Mumbai in their profile. We had Twitter, we had various other campaigns which actually worked, Mumbai University, the students, etc., etc. So that's basically been my journey on the activism front. Another thing was the Keenan Rubin murder case. So that happened in 2011. So for those of you all who are from the Lokhandwala Andheri area, I'm sure you're familiar about it. Two boys basically stood up to people who harassed one of their friends who was a girl, and they were killed. One died on the spot, one died 2 days later. And we then amended the IPC in Maharashtra. We took the case to its logical conclusion to ensure that the perpetrators are imprisoned for life, not life imprisonment. So that is a kind of activisty journey that I've had. In my professional life, I still am part of it. So I consult for KPMG from time to time. And I also am part of my startup, which works towards making domestic workers financially independent and debt-free. It's called Served. It's the only fintech uh, funded by Bill Gates. But yeah, sadly, that didn't really turn out the way I hoped it, because all the money hoped it would, because the money got stuck with the FCRA and we had to repurpose and retrench. That's something that I'm on. The second startup is about political technology. We make software for politicians to take better decisions. So we are in the process of building an ERP for them. And presently, what keeps me busy is two things. The Aam Aadmi Party, of course. I am privileged to be one of their 12 national joint secretaries. I'm based in Mumbai. I hope to make a career in electoral politics from Mumbai. And the other thing which keeps me busy is Khana Chahiye. Have you all been following Khana Chahiye online?
Yeah, I've been following it.
Okay, so Khana Chahiye is basically okay, just 1 minute. Hello, is this fine?
Yeah.
Sorry, so Khana Chahiye is basically the first attempt of creating a hunger map of Mumbai, because when we heard about lockdown, so when I say we, the group is the Litmus Test Project. These are the same people who worked behind the scenes during the India Against Corruption movement, who, as I mentioned, were part of the Zero Tolerance campaign against sexual harassment of women, and who worked for the Amboli murder case and subsequently. And of course, worked with the State Election Commission to increase Mumbai's voting percentage. So we had a bunch of people which does something exciting, interesting. What really drives us is creating impact at scale and making the government work. And all of our activism has basically been a jigsaw puzzle fitting into that paradigm. Khana Chahiye is an exception because when the lockdown was announced, we got a lot of input from a lot of people about a lot of people going hungry. And we didn't have prior experience of food production or food manufacturing. And I got in touch with, and which is why, Sampath always mentions the network. I got in touch with my friends who are hoteliers and restaurateurs, Munaf Kapadia, Pranav Rungta, Niti Goyal, and they are restaurateurs. They run Nom Nom, they run Kiva, they run Madras Diaries, Cafe Royal, Bori Kitchen, etc. And I told them that, look, if we had to start a food initiative, how would we go about it? Because, what is it going to cost? How do we maintain hygiene? How do we create processes? And we started on the 29th of March with 1,200 meals. And today we are at 35 lakh meals.
35 lakh meals per day?
Per day would basically vary. No, 35 lakh meals overall.
Okay.
Because we started with 1,200 meals and grew over a period of time. Most of the money has come in through either corporates or by people sponsoring them. These sponsorships are either individual, anonymous, or through crowdfunding. But more than all of this, what we were able to do is we quantified demand and we married that with supply. And the supply was to basically unused kitchen capacity across a network of restaurants. And right now we are operational on 5 verticals. The first vertical is, of course, our arterial roads of Mumbai. So we have the Eastern Express Highway, Western Express Highway, Link Road, SV Road, and LBS Road. So we go from start to end, and we distribute food. The BMC is has been kind enough to give us PST buses for the distribution of food. That's point number 1. Point number 2 is clusters. Clusters are basically slum pockets which have basically been pushed into destitution just because of the nature of the lockdown. All economic activity has come to a standstill, and a lot of people who would otherwise be able to make their ends meet on a weekly basis, whether it's to rent or whether it's to basically going and feeding themselves by going to a canteen or something to that effect, some local arrangement. So all of that, because it went to a standstill, these pockets have gone into destitution. For example, construction workers, or for that matter, daily wage laborers across the place. And these are not necessarily migrants as the media would like you to believe. Some of them have been staying here for the last for decades, really. So these are those slum clusters. That's the second route of operation. We basically connect the kitchens to these point of contacts. We validate demand, of course, and we just have a feedback loop to ensure quality control. That's point number 2. Point number 3 is, the migrants walking on the road. We saw that, and around that time that we first saw migrants walking the road, we took permission and set up relief operations for the migrant workers at Thane on the Mumbai-Nasik highway, at Dahisar on the Mumbai-Surat highway, and at Vashi on the Mumbai-Bangalore highway. We gave them biscuits, water, ORS, footwear in some cases, food, all kinds of things. And if you typically look at us as an organization, sorry, I'm just deviating, we've evolved in such a way that whatever crisis this pandemic has presented, we've always been able to respond to that in a positive way and actually solve a problem to the extent that we can. And then when the railway started their trains, we got in touch with the BMC, and the BMC requested us that for whatever bureaucratic reason, and I'm not going to get into that right now, the BMC requested us to give food to these people, and the IRCTC wasn't giving people food. And we saw the abject conditions of these migrants when they were walking on the road. It was absolutely desperate. People didn't know where they're going. We saw trucks full of nearly 100 people, 200 people, women, children as young as a few days old, just desperate, just going out there because, you're hearing horror stories like the contractor switched off his mobile phone. Some truck driver fleeced them by taking the last possible money that they had. And it was bad. So from early on, we adopted 3 stations. So Mumbai had 4 stations. BT, Bandra and Kurla is what we adopted. Borivali was something we couldn't adopt. But 3 stations, we've been able to support at least 250 trains, Shramik special trains, and give each passenger water, fruits, theplas, matris, one cooked meal, and ORS packets, and of course biscuit packets, thanks to people like Parle Ji, and thanks to Star TV, which basically supported this initiative of ours. So yeah, that's what we've been doing. And of course, the last vertical has been the Ghar Bhejo initiative. That is, of course, an initiative started by my colleague Neeti Goyal with Sonu Sood, which is now very popular. That is something which is supported by Khana Chahiye. So all the Ghar Bhejo activity is managed by the Khana Chahiye volunteers, and all the food is basically sent to them by Khana Chahiye. So that's what we're doing. And sorry, I've gone on and on. And I hope I have basically been within time. Sorry.
Yeah.
Over to you, Sampath.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, I mean, I've been following Ruben on Twitter. I've been seeing the work he's doing. Yesterday night also, he came back quite late, and amazing job he's been doing. And he also urged me to stand for elections once. Then he told me.
I still think you should.
So then he told me, okay, corporator is coming up. We'll see at that time. So that's one of the things. And he's a very, very dedicated. Forget about political affiliations and all. This guy is like, he's a real, I could say, a son of the soil. Not to mention the real name of son of the soils, but he's been working, and a lot of us talk. That's why I said, deeds not words. He is been doing work consistently, and I had a good fortune of connecting Elsa Murray, connected both of us together, and we had a good discussion during the TEDx, and he's doing amazing work. So now over to everyone and questions. Yes, Ravi has got a question over there. So Ravi is from Pune. Ravi is a very wealthy industrialist, and he could also contribute to something. So he's also a Rotarian like me.
Okay.
And it was his birthday yesterday.
Happy birthday, Ravi.
Ruben is gone yesterday. Sampath is just trying to make my birthday extend over a week, maybe.
Oh, belated
That-
birthday wishes.
We always need an excuse to have a party, right? That's
I know.
the spirit of Mumbai.
I am a born Mumbaiite, Goregaon. Okay.
Okay.
Right. Okay. Coming to my questions, Ruben. My first query is you mentioned that voters' turnout was increased by about 13%.
That's correct.
Which year was this?
2017, February.
Okay. And the increase was in which part of the community, like the, if I may say, the literate, illiterate, or the educated, uneducated, or the business class, or the low middle income group, and what sector of society really got motivated?
So I think one is, of course, we do not have conclusive data. We did a regression analysis, and the best result that we could arrive at is that a lot of young people voted. We tried to change that. So we created a model where rather than corporate social responsibility, you have institutional social responsibility. Rather than people telling you to vote, the institute should ensure all the people vote. And we try to implement that with the CII too. And assuming, just going by the responses of the 16 lakh odd people who gave us a missed call within the Mumbai area itself, which is a very large number. If we map that to, the Facebook profiles, a majority came from there. So that coupled with our interventions on social media, I would say it is safe to assume that the people who came out to vote were essentially middle class voters, were essentially young people who either were in colleges, working professionals, and basically used social media. So social media users came in a much larger proportion, and I think that resulted into the 13%.
I got two more questions for you, Ruben. The next one is you mentioned you have developed an ERP for politicians.
Yes.
I
am developing. That's the next product.
Oh, you're still working on it?
Yeah.
How would a politician's office be able to use an ERP per se? I mean,
so let me explain to you. I think what I identified was the average shaka or the average politician basically functions by just putting a table there, putting a tube light there, and wearing a kurta like I am wearing right now. And people come there with a lot of queries, and either he has a team which he pays, or there is a volunteer-driven organization, whichever way. And then there is what I call public problem solving. But none of this data is actually quantified. None of this data is actually looked at in a scientific way to enable him to make policy level interventions. This is for an electoral aspirant or somebody who is an elected representative. So the answer to your question is that that's exactly what the product does.
Okay.
Sorry? 1 second. No, I'm just muting people. Somebody's talking. Yeah. Continue.
So that is exactly what the product does. The product is supposed to help politicians take quick decisions because they get a broad view of things. And we have a voter relationship management. We are able to quantify the kind of work people have done and take decisions which are data driven and not necessarily intuition. So we should basically be launching this product by the end of this year. It's anyways been delayed. We are beta testing and incorporating a few of those suggestions.
Last question. It's a Herculean task you've been doing of the 35 lakh odd meals which have been given away to the deserving people, and using, I believe, the unused kitchen capacity of various outlets.
Restaurant.
Lovely. It's just a matter of sharing, but you are from Lokhandwala and general that location area.
No, I live in Irla. I live right next to the Cooper Hospital.
Then close by to Sampath's house is Monjini's cake factory. I don't know if it is still there. Good old days it was there. And they had a good habit that one day before the best before date came for every outlet, wherever in town, they would pick up that food which was still good, but just one day left. they would give it away to charity instead of letting it be destroyed anywhere. Pick up one day before the best before date. That could be an information which could be meaningful for you to apply if you're looking to assist people. So Mongenis is just one of them. There could be so many people in that business.
Okay, so
The Khuraki
Ravi,
walas, I mean.
yeah, I'll just add to this. So what we've been doing is we've had a three-pronged approach when it comes to this. We reached a lot of distributors with a lot of supply of goods and even manufacturers. Let's say Cheda chips. Okay, this is a range of chips, or for that matter, Patel Gulab Jamun. Now, this is again a brand of Gulab Jamun which obviously cannot be distributed in the next 15 days or 20 days. It's best before just that. And we got this in large quantities, which we actually went around and distributed across the city. So we've been doing that, but we don't have a connect with Mongenis. If maybe one of you all can help us with that, great. And I think through this, I would just like to extend this appeal to all of you that if you know anybody who has stock which obviously can't be distributed given the nature of the lockdown and its repeated extensions, then we're more than happy to distribute it. And we're distributing this across the routes, across slums, orphanages, old age homes, and etc. We'll be happy to do that. That's point number one. Point number two, another appeal which is related to this is, Amita Chauhan ji of Parle Ji has been a huge support for us. And through her, we activated her Sodexo kitchen because the companies basically, thank you, Abhijit. I just saw your message. Thank you for that. For Mongenis Connect, hopefully something works out on that front. But what we discovered with Amita ji is a lot of these canteens, which are with Sodexo, have the annual contract. And because they have the annual contract, that's money already paid for, and that's again unused capacity. So we have the Parle Ji. So of course now the Parle Ji factory is shifted to Khopoli, and there's a much smaller workforce here in Parle East. But they were kind enough to give us 400 meals a day, which we then connected to Nehru Nagar, which is one of the biggest containment zones in K West Ward, as you would know, going by the statistics. We've now extended this to Aditya Birla Group's schools. We are now extending this to their companies. So if any of you all know any corporate kitchen which is there, most of these kitchens have annual contracts. Please put us in touch with them. Even if it comes to paying a nominal fee, we're fine with that. But we can get that going. So right now we have approximately 3,000 meals out of a daily quota of approximately 50. It varies between 50 and 70,000 a day, depending upon demand. And also depending upon how much of it we are serving ration. So we are also serving ration to people who have cooking apparatus, and for people who don't have cooking apparatus, which are completely destitute, we give them cooked food. So that's an appeal to all of you. So if you know any corporate which has an unused canteen and which has people there, we're more than happy to. So we work directly with the BMC, we work directly with the police, we work directly with the fire brigade. We're more than happy to help you with the licenses to get it started again. And we can work on any model possible. So there are a number of models. Either we pay them a nominal fee. We're happy to do that, which then supplies us at cost price. So right now, in some canteens, we're buying that at 20 rupees a meal. Sometimes we give them raw materials and they just cook for us. We're open to that too. Or third is, if, of course, they have a very large heart, they should basically sponsor us too. So that's an appeal. Maybe Ravi, through because you're an industrialist, or maybe the other people listening here, if you could just put us in touch with some of these people, I'll be extremely grateful.
Ruben, just to add to your thoughts, large corporates, I mean, I could count a few, but then they have a fairly large CSR budget. And under the COVID pandemic, the government has granted that a lot of areas of expenses which are done for containing or maintaining the situation would be eligible to be expended under the CSR. Earlier rules were a bit strict. Now this is something which you'll have to locate local corporates because they have to go in a local area. I mean, I couldn't be giving you somebody in Delhi who has to do work in Bombay that way. And
No, so Ravi, I'll just like to add, and sorry, I'll take 2 more minutes. Sampath, may I? Sampath, are you there?
Yeah.
So the problem, and I'll be very honest with you guys, and I'm not going to mince word. The problem with the CSR budgets. So we've got a lot of CSR support. So let me put that. Let me be very clear about that. Wipro has supported us in a very big way. I think they have been our biggest donor, and I don't think without Wipro we would have been able to reach the scale that we have. Mr. Premji's son himself, Rishad, has been on top of things, and it's been fantastic. We've had Paytm support us again through their CSR budget. Not as big as Wipro, but certainly substantial. In addition to that, Parle G has been giving us free biscuits, and I think that's just a blessing because at least you have biscuits. Bisleri has given us water. Coca-Cola has promised us water, but that water has not come. But when it comes to the other people, so we are having. I mean, I also one of my key responsibilities in the initiative is to raise funds, and the common refrain that we're hearing from these large corporates is that, and I'm being very honest here, that they've been asked to put their money into the PM CARES funds. And that is not available to any other organization. And I don't know whether people are talking about it very openly in the development sector, but I am. And I'm using this platform to just sound everybody out that you are going to see an entire collapse of the development sector just because the funds through CSR has all gone into either CM CARES or PM CARES, the CM Relief Fund or the PM Relief Fund. And a large chunk of that money is not actually available. I think we should just thank our stars and thank the ecosystem that we are in, that we've been able to raise whatever we've raised. On the crowdfunding fund, we raise about 1.5 lakhs every 2 days. So it's like 75,000 rupees a day. So all of those things have worked for us, but yeah. So again, an appeal to you, please connect us with the CSR people. We have tied up with Project Mumbai, Shishir Joshi's organization, which is, again, so Shishir is also a co-founder of Aana Chahiye. We're doing this together. And the money is routed through Project Mumbai, which is a registered public trust. So whoever donates gets an ATG certificate. The other organization is Bharat Uttan Sangh, which is, again, something started by Advocate Rakesh Singh. He's a very famous advocate, the guy responsible for the IPL and the RA judgments. He is, again, I mean, the money is routed to these two NGOs. That's how we function. But yeah, I mean, please put us in touch with the CSR people. I'll be more than happy. It will really help.
Great. Vishwajit had a question.
Yeah, actually, what I think, Ruben, we are very heavily dependent on very few in the society and their actually charity or those CSR funds. I think we have got large pool of students from schools, colleges, as well as the employees of this organization, and somehow if we tap them, educate them, and make it a habit for them that a part of their income, pocket money, they should enjoy putting for the deprived people, then still you will be able to actually raise large amount of funds from common man, which can be utilized for common man's benefit. There I see a big communication gap between haves and haves not. And large section of the society, they are not bothered about charity. We only rely on very few rich people who are at their whims and fancy. They may have their own interest behind doing this CSR charity. So are you planning to educate the society as such so that many people come forward?
So I think there have been two realizations during this entire campaign, Aana Chahiye initiative. One is that a full stomach is a privilege, and you can only understand that when you're hungry. And second is that this is not a society of the haves and the have-nots. It is a society of the haves and the have-mores. But having said that, we have a crowdfunding campaign and we are experimenting there. We've been able to raise 78 lakhs approximately. That's the last I checked this morning, and counting. Though it has not been as successful as we expected it to be, but it's still by all means reasonably successful. And so far, I'm proud to say that till date, all bills have been paid. So there is no bill that is pending. We've been extremely fiscally prudent on that count. But yeah, we did run campaigns like if you're not spending money on a weekend party or chilling with friends, you might as well spend the same money or a fraction of it. You can donate it to us. So we've been doing that, and we've met with some little success. But right now we are trying to work with some ad geniuses, work with people like Ram Subramaniam, etc., to basically ideate on that front. So yeah, I mean, it's a pertinent point, and it's something that very honestly we failed at largely. We've been only moderately successful, but yeah, that's even my understanding.
Thank you.
Thanks, thanks.
Efforts have been made. Thanks.
Nihal has a question.
Yeah. So Ruben, a couple of things, observations from what you were speaking about.
Nihal, you're extremely muffled. You're not.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
This
better.
is clear. Yes. Then.
Yeah. So, a couple of things which came to my mind while you were speaking is when you spoke about the PM fund and the CM fund and all of that. But I think, when you look at it, it's across the country. Every state has a CM relief fund, which is, collecting money, and, corporates have been donating money to the CM relief fund because of a lot of other things which probably the government has to do. And I mean, I don't think any state is left behind in starting a CM relief fund as far as COVID-19 is concerned. The second part is, why can't you work along with the government in taking certain initiatives as more of a partnership with them in providing this, because they are also looking at providing a lot of food with other NGOs like Rotary and everybody who have come together and provided so much of meals and ration and everything. So I think it's more to collaborate rather than try to do something individually.
So
why is it that you're trying to do it individually and not collaborate with organizations which are who already have the reach, who have the money, and who've collected a lot of money in providing these essentials to the needy ones?
So Nihal, two things. Number one, you've raised two questions. Let me try and answer both of them. Number one, the CM cares, the PM cares. Okay, yes, there are a lot of things that the government does, but clearly we are not really seeing any of it. I mean, are you saying that the administration could do nothing when it saw the lakhs of people on the road walking? There was not even one district administration which basically came out there to even give water to people, until and unless they were shamed by NGOs literally coming out there, Good Samaritans coming out there. So while the government does a lot, and I'm sure that continues, but look at the railway bit, right? I mean, people didn't get a meal. I mean, if we wouldn't have given that meal to them, they wouldn't have got another meal. So despite the fact that it was additionally, I mean, there was a lot of discussion in our group that, hey, should the BMC pay for it, or should somebody else do it? Why should we basically do that? We should stick to what we are doing. We still said no. We should do that, because we'll get into the blame game later. But we should do that. So the answer to your question is, we've done whatever we've done only when we've seen the failure of the system there. Number one. Number two, all our efforts have always been collaborative. I am actually just returning from the BMC meeting. We have adopted, out of Mumbai's 24 administrative wards, we have adopted 6 wards. The B is Project Mumbai, Khana Chahiye, Ration Chahiye, Bharat Uttan Sangh together. K-West ward is one of the wards that we've adopted. And we are distributing ration to those in need. So it is extremely collaborative on the government part. We are working very closely with the BMC, the Mumbai Police, the Mumbai Fire Brigade, and the state government. The state government through its deputy collectors. So let me elaborate. each time a person calls the Maharashtra government helpline, they basically take their details. There is some amount of validation being done through the deputy collector, and there's a list of people. And depending upon what they want, we either give them cooked meals or we give them dry rations, dry groceries. The second list is basically a list prepared by the elected representatives, namely the councillors, the MLAs, and the CDO. The CDO is basically the community development officer, and these people take details separately, and there are these two lists. So whatever we are doing is in collaboration with the BMC, and I ideally think the BMC should do its heavy lifting. A lot of us have already, we've already distributed over 10,000 odd kits, and while we are raising funds and we are reasonably successful at that, it's still a daunting task. The third thing, we've also been very collaborative with other organizations to the extent that we can. Let me give you examples. Rotary Club of Queen's Necklace used to give us free khichdi for a point in time. After that, they basically started charging us for it. We have the Raj Chandra Mission people who were kind enough to give us theplas. We have Nimish Bhai, I forget his organization, they gave us 2 lakh theplas. So we've collaborated with an organization as and when. So we're not opposed to that. We're open to that. If you know of any, we also have a tie-up with the Rotary Club of Borivali for processing FCRA funds through them. All of that is happening. But if you know of any Rotary Club, or if you know of any, because you all are Rotarians, because
no, I'll just interject out here. So, like for example, KVN Foundation has got Feed My Mumbai. They've got different chapters in different cities, like Feed My Bangalore, Feed My Mumbai, and as Rotary has probably not distributed more than a couple of million meals, so has KVN Foundation. So and it's backed by corporates like Piramal Group and all of that. So I'm saying,
that's basically by the CFO of the Piramal Group, right?
Yes,
yeah.
I know him. He's a good friend of mine. I'm saying, so there are so many of them. In fact, I'll tell you, the Bori Community Kitchen, right? So I know somebody who's very close to the top echelons of in the Bori community.
Right.
I don't know whether what do you say about people not getting food on those trains and all of that? I think I'll leave that aside because there's too much of political color on that, and I don't want to get into the political side of stuff, right? Because what we see on the screens and what we actually know on the ground and what we might hear are different versions. So I don't want to get into a debate. But
so you're entitled to your opinion, but the situation is bad.
No, just let me complete. Just let me complete. Sure. 1 second. So the amount of food wastage which has taken place when food has been distributed in the first 4 phases of lockdown. Before Ramzan, the Bori Community Kitchen used to also supply food to various slums, various migrant population dominated areas, and they themselves stopped in 4 large locations because there was so much of food and ration going there that food was literally thrown away. So I disagree on some of the aspects. You and I can both be in disagreement. We can agree to disagree. But there are people who have supplied food and they stopped supplying because of that.
I just two things. Sorry.
No, so I'm saying don't give a political color. Let's be very clear about it.
No, we are extremely clear. No, sir. With due respect, 2 things. In every train, we have been taking 5 random people's numbers and checking with them whether they've been getting food or not. In 90% of the cases, they are not getting food, sir. This data is there. We've written to the General Manager Railways. We send it right up to the Railway Minister. The Railway Minister has gone on record and said not a single migrant has actually died. He's actually mentioned that. This is not a statement of my imagination.
No, Ruben, I substantiate
not about political color, sir. This is about facts.
I substantiate your point because I just checked with someone about a couple of hours back. So there are 2 complaints. One is they are either not getting food at all, or secondly, what they are getting is so rubbish that the moment they are getting it, they are throwing it away. So these people are just doing the formalities of distributing something actually which is inhuman, actually speaking. So you have a valid point there.
One last thing, and sorry for being argumentative about it, but it's something that I believe in very, very closely because I've seen that happening. And the second thing that I'd just like to add is about food wastage. Sir, we work with POCs. Maybe invite you one day to, we'll give you the PPE kit and, the face shield and mask and stuff. Please come along with us. And we've been able to optimize operation. The kind of people that we cater to do not have the luxury of saying no to what is being given to them. And I think there may be food spoilage because in the summer, because of the heat, because of the way the food is packed and the ingredients of the menu, there may be food spoilage, but I'm reasonably confident there is no food wastage, sir.
Sam, I have to say something about the train journeys of the people.
Ruben, I have a question.
Yeah, we'll just go to Roswell and then who was that? Who was speaking?
Nilesh.
Yeah. Okay.
Ruben, I have sent you a private question. Privately, I have sent you on a chat if you can see that.
Who is this?
Roswell D'Souza. I am based
D'Souza.
in Dubai. I'm actually got stranded here in Mumbai, and I have a situation in hand. As my dad is aging, and in the domestic help is not. We are not getting any domestic help from outside. The secretary is not allowing anybody to come inside. So, is there a chance that in a special case where you have an age-old father and I'm recovering from a surgery? So, is there a way you can just help me or guide me what I need to do in this situation? Where we don't have any women.
So 30 seconds and I'll try and answer that. You can basically write a letter addressed to the Medical Officer of Health, MOH, K West Ward. This is Mrs. Gulnar Khan, and you have a team of doctors under her. That's how we. So this is the same department which gives you your birth, death certificate, etc., etc., etc. Now they're the nodal agency for getting people tested and for approving these permissions or whatever. Their circular generally, this is the BMC circular, states very clearly that it is as per the society to take a decision in this regard. So you can maybe request the secretary, you can maybe nudge the secretary saying that because lockdown is eased and if there is some basic screening done of the domestic worker, then she should be allowed. I know of societies, my own society, I live in Irla. My own society has got domestic workers tested. They've got them screened, and they are that bit has resumed. So I think it's a society to society case. Let's take this offline. Sampath can share his number.
I'll share his number with you.
Yeah, Sampath can share my number with you, and I'm more than happy to connect. Please call me sometime after 11 p.m. at night. I'll be more than happy to help you.
Great.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Last question. Nilesh has got a question. So Nilesh has been going out he's always out during the lockdown doing his work. So Nilesh, over to you.
It's not about the question. It's about the realistic things what I have observed. First of all, about the train journeys, it's very sad that one of my laborer died somewhere in Bihar after getting down from the train because he not got any food for more than 3 days. Whatever he has got when he boarded in the Mumbai, but almost it was a 4 days journey to reach his native, and after getting down to the platform, he was almost gone. So all the checking, that is the one thing. So it was a nightmare journey to them, those people, because almost my 150 laborers have migrated back to their native. So it's a nightmare to all of them. But the one situation that media has created, the panicking situation that something in Mumbai में कुछ बहुत बड़ा होने वाला है, because the everywhere saying कि सर गांव वाले तो बोल रहे हैं कि तुम्हारा जो है वैसे छोड़ के तुम आ जाओ, बॉम्बे में कुछ मतलब बोलते ना, it is like वर्ड नहीं आ रहा है, मतलब ऐसे रास्ते पे मरने वाले, they are just mad people, laborers are mad, उनको आप कितना भी समझाओ नहीं समझेंगे. You won't believe 10 of my laborers हाथ का काम छोड़ के भाग गए, पैसा भी नहीं लेके गए, सर मेरा ट्रेन आ गया मैं जा रहा हूँ, that's it. So the media, what the hype it has created, rather it could have been the thing भाई तुम जिधर हो उधर सेफ हो, things will get better, because यहाँ पे जो इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर है वो गांव में नहीं है. अगर उधर जाके ये ज्यादा स्प्रेड होगा तो what the people will do? वो कोई मरेगा उसको पूछने, उसको लेबल भी लगाने नहीं जाएगा. एटलीस्ट समथिंग यू विल गेट, एटलीस्ट बोलते 2 टैबलेट्स तो बॉम्बे में मिलेगा, गांव में तो कुछ नहीं मिलेगा. So something media has also played. Even if you play the TV in the morning, you will feel like यार 2 घंटे में तुमको खुद को कोरोना हो गया, जरा भी खासोगे तो. So
I think there are 2-3 points. May I answer this, Sampath?
Yeah.
So I'll take 2 minutes, but let me try and dissect the question. It has 3 parts. Number one, let's not forget and let's not kid ourselves that while the pandemic has been a global pandemic, you only have a humanitarian crisis in India. Okay, and I'm not saying this merely because I happen to be from a political party, but what is apparent is apparent, and yeah, we can see how the whole thing is basically panning out. And yeah, I think governments at all levels have collapsed. It's not just the systems basically being overwhelmed. Point number one. Point number two. Yes, the media may have said a few things, and I don't think it is just the media hype. There is, of course, a sense of herd mentality, but let's not forget. I think you're one of the better employers who's been kind enough to ask people to stay, and you're giving them some financial security. But a large number of people who are in the informal sector don't really have that. Let me give you examples, specific examples. There is a colony called Thakkar Bapa Colony in Kurla,
Yes.
where you have tanneries. You have people working in the leather factories, and that's a place that we supply 5,000 meals a day. And it's so sad that a large number of people, we've been hearing the same thing, that contractor ने अपना phone बंद कर दिया है कि अगर हम हफ्ते का जो किराया देते थे, मकान मालिक अभी हमसे किराया जो है वसूल रहा है, हमारे पास वो पैसे नहीं है. When you are meeting these migrants, they're so desperate. So maybe I think somewhere down the line, while this is a city and this is a city of opportunity, I think we as a collective have also failed our migrants, our laborers, and I think the term migrant itself is wrong. Our workers, I think that's a much more dignified term to use. We've all collectively failed them because this is their karma bhumi, and they've been working here for many years. Why is it that they still don't feel secure here? And that's a very, 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 very nuanced question. But I think all said and done, we've literally failed them. That is my personal assessment of the whole situation. And number two, the panic. I think I'd like to end with two particular things. One is that the refrain that I heard across the spectrum is that ये अमीरों ने पता नहीं कहाँ से बीमारी लाए, वो पता नहीं किस विदेश के किस देश में जा करके उन्होंने ये बीमारी लाया, और अभी इसके बाद हम गरीब जो है इसका खामियाजा भुगत रहे हैं. And that's a feeling which we've been listening to throughout. And taking that, extending that, I think the inequalities which always existed, and we could choose to ignore it, have just been amplified because of the lockdown, and we're seeing what we're seeing because of that. And I'd like to end by saying, so sorry for being a little forceful about a few things, but I think I speak from conviction. And I think lastly, you don't require big money to do charity. You require a big heart. When we started out, we had very, very little money, and we got a seed investment by Ujjwal Thakkar, the former CEO of Pratham, of just 25,000 rupees, and we just went on, and today we've served over 35 lakh meals. So yeah, so thank you so much for having listened to me.
Thank you, Ruben.
Great. Okay. Thanks, Ruben. It was good. We didn't get into too much of Maramari, so that was also nice. So
It's not Maramari. Yeah.
there was no political discussions. I only think of one thing: when the TV comes on. Yeah, it's okay. That's fine. That's nice, Ruben. Thank you so much, and great work you're doing. Definitely, we'll try and connect you to a couple of Rotary clubs. And Abhijit, you had something to say?
So apart from the current discussions that we were having around food distribution and all, that's not the point that I wanted to ask Ruben. Ruben, a little bit of a long-term question. To 2024, will AAP have some solid national campaign getting ready, or we will have only one party? So I'm neither a supporter of any party nor a anti of any party, but for a vibrant democracy, we need at least 2-3 parties to keep poking at each other. Today we don't have anybody poking. We have
So when I still remember in 2011, I still remember the date, 21st August 2011, we had created the Tahrir Square effect at the Jew Circle, and we had, lakhs of people on the road. The police estimate itself, it got published in the next day's Mumbai Mirror, put the number at nearly 8 lakh people. Having said that, because the entire rally was very long and etc., I really thought that it was just about, we have the wind and we just need to put the sails and we'll reach the shore. And I really thought that by this age, I would be an elected representative, and I perhaps would, if not be a minister, be somewhere there in some decision making of the government, if not in the state, then at least at the municipality. And when we then contested the 2014 election, a painful realization was that we as a movement were able to make this country angry. We were able to call out the Congress's corruption like no one did since the JP movement. But we couldn't basically convert that popular support in urban India, at least, and this is not even looking at the rural India part. We couldn't convert it just because we lacked an organization. And that is key, and organization is key, and we are still a long way out. So yeah, I will be an elected rep, but maybe I will be a middle-aged elected rep and not a young elected rep, at least if you're looking at the national level. So 2024, we are still looking at expanding in states. Right now, the plan has been to rather than contest all seats, which is the Yogendra Yadav school of thought. We are concentrating our focus in certain pockets. Punjab would be the next state government. Punjab and Goa. Goa, we got 7% of the vote share and a reasonably high vote share recently. And over a period of time, we would basically be looking at consolidating in those states. But irrespective of 2024, let me tell this to you, and I've told this to Sampath. 2022, you see Aam Aadmi Party make its debut, and it will be like the first time Arvind Kejriwal got 28 seats when he contested in Delhi, when the Aam Aadmi Party made its debut. You're going to see an Aam Aadmi Party make a debut in February 2022. I myself will contest from Ward 69 in Andheri West from K West, and I invite Sampath to do the same from Ward in Lokalwala.
Nihal वोट देगा ना मुझे? Nihal is not saying anything. Okay.
What? क्या? You are going to stand for election.
You'll vote for me, na?
You are going to stand.
Yeah,
Very good. Which party?
That depends on which party is giving the ticket. The Jhadu people are more than willing to give them a ticket right now.
Jhadu लेके साफ कर.
Let's see. You ask him what is the incentive to vote.
एक party related. संपर्क झाड़ू कितना मत वो दिखना है.
I told you that I'll be starting TLP, the liquor party. No license for alcohol. Great. Hey, thanks everyone. And Ruben,